Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Health Matters. Tonight, our focus is going to be on the 16 days of activism. And our guests in studio tonight are Estelle Otto and Martin Barnard. I will be introducing them shortly, but firstly, we'll begin with the tarbiyah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. The Quran states, and among his signs is that he created for you mates amongst yourselves, that you may live in tranquility with them, and he has put love and mercy between you. Verily, in that are signs for people who reflect. Surah 30, verse 21. Some of the rights of women in Islam are: the first of her rights is the choice of her husband. A woman is not forced to marry a man without her acceptance. Islam obliges the man to give to the woman as a symbol of his desire in marrying her and of wanting her, and Allah says, and give to the woman obligatory bridal money given by the husband to his wife at the time of marriage with a good heart. But if they, of their own good pleasure, remit a part of it to you, take it and enjoy it without fear of any harm. The wife is financially independent from the husband. Islam has protected woman's independent personality and ensured her full capability to be financially independent from her husband. Muslim women have the right to earn money, own property, to enter into legal contracts, and to manage all of her assets in the way she pleases. The husband is financially fully responsible for his wife, poor or rich. Her living costs are estimated in proportion to her husband's financial ability. Living with them honorably, this includes respect her and pay attention to her needs. Never ever reveal the secrets of the household and those of the married couple. The husband is not to stay away from his wife or keep his wife in a state of suspense, whether at home or abroad, for a protracted period of time except with her consent. The woman has the right to work, provided that her work does not make her ignore her main job as a mother and a wife. The woman has the right to keep her family name after marriage. The wife has the right to inherit her husband according to the rules of inheritance in Islam. So I think what this actually says, that the woman's right and status in Islam is exalted to a very high level, and one cannot dismiss or discount the status of women in Islam. I will now like to focus on the 16 days of activism, which the theme is Count Me In, moving forward together, moving forward zero tolerance South Africa. And our two guests in studio tonight are Estelle Otto. Estelle is a social work policy developer who works for the Department of Social Development in the field of victim empowerment, and she's been in this field for 20 years. Martin Barnard is also a chairperson of the provincial chair of the Child Protection Forum in Gauteng. And they are going to speak about the 16 days of activism, the zero tolerance for violence against women and children. We know that violence is rife, and the most marginalized group are women and children. So we're going to begin with Estelle to tell us a little bit more about the history of 16 days. What is all this hype about 16 days? Are we just focusing on 16 days and we suddenly then forget about it?
16 days of activism, if I can just call it 16 days to be short, We started celebrating this initiative 18 years ago in 1998. What is very important is for every woman and every child to feel safe in South Africa, as an example. So what we have is on the 25th of November every year, it is the International Day of the Elimination of Violence. So that is usually the opening of 16 days. Then we all know on the 1st of December, it is World AIDS Day. On the 3rd of December, it is the International Day for People with Disabilities. And then the closing of 16 days is usually on the 10th of December, which is Human Rights Day. And we also have build-up activities. For example, we had International Men's Day on the 19th of November. That is also celebrated in South Africa. But what is very important is to have 365 days. Every day we need to be against violence and to fight violence. And then from 2014, we started looking at how to involve young men and boys, young boys and men in stopping violence as well. And then when you look at the white ribbon, it is for us to be in solidarity with the victims of crime and violence. So that is why we wear the white ribbon during 16 days.
Martin, your account of the 16 days of activism, Estelle has alluded to the fact that it's not just 16 days, that this is a 365-day campaign, an ongoing campaign, an ongoing fight, and the demonstration of zero tolerance. Can you tell us more about the work that you do in this field of child protection?
Yes, sure. Thanks, Shadia, and thanks for inviting me on your program. Where we actually fit in is we're busy with the child protection committees, and they're actually on the ground doing the work. So we do programs 365 days a year. So it's just not on 16 days or child protection. Our committees do various programs like teenage pregnancy, ECD, disability, like my colleague Estelle was saying. We just carry it throughout the year. So in February, we'll do a program of teenage pregnancy. In March, we'll do substance abuse, and so it'll go on and on.
So this 365-day campaign requires initiatives, efforts, and working with the communities all the time. Estelle, the people that we are working with, who are we actually focusing on? You identified men and boys, women and children, and we're talking about gender-based violence, so we're speaking specifically to your girl child and woman, because we know that they are being violated more frequently than it actually being reported.
Yes, if you look at studies that has been done, women and children, they are 90% of the victims of crime and violence, or gender-based violence specifically. Then we also have vulnerable groups, which is the elderly. We also have people with disabilities. We also have xenophobia, which is something that happens to people from other countries that come to South Africa. They are quite vulnerable. And then we also have the lesbian and gay community, which a lot of hate crime is also committed to them. When you look at men, they do not always report violence. Yes. And what you also find is that there's underreporting when it comes to gender-based violence. So you'll find that it's only the tip of the iceberg that gets reported to the police or to the Department of Health. But there's a study by Gender Links that they've done which showed that people don't talk about what happened. You know, it's something that happens in the house. And like you've just mentioned, it's something that needs to be solved in the house as well. So people don't want to talk about what is happening inside the house.
So that takes us to the issue of domestic violence, because we're finding that a lot of the violence is occurring within the immediate vicinity or immediate context in which people live or cohabit. And we find that there's a co-occurrence of domestic violence and child abuse. And Martin, perhaps you can speak to that.
Yes, Shaida. What we're actually finding, like my colleague Estelle has said, there is definitely underreporting going on, and we're trying to break that cycle. Please, public, we are asking you to report. Report is very, very important because it helps us to help you in your family where we can occur and run with the program. So please do your reporting, and you can go to any SAPS and report it there, or you can go to social development and report it there as well. And we have a child protection unit in the Johannesburg facility where you can call in as well, and you can also do the reporting there. We have social workers on standby 24/7 which can go out to the scene and help and assist you.
Martin, you're raising something very, very pertinent here in terms of reporting. I think there are legislations and specific legislations that speak to the reporting and failure to report. Perhaps you can inform the viewers about that in terms of the Children's Act and the Sexual Offences Act.
Okay.
And failure to report.
Yes, Shaida, you are actually quite right there. Everybody has to report. It is our duty as a community, as office bearers, as social development. Anybody can do a reporting, because in the Children's Act it guides us and tells us what we can do and what we cannot do. So reporting is one. That's why we do not have a lot of figures on the Child Protection Register. And I know this is a big, big issue, because a lot of people are saying, why is the Child Protection Register not working? Simple reason, people are not reporting, so it's not going on the register. And the Sexual Offence Register as well. They're not reporting, so we don't know with the courts and what's happening. So please, we definitely do need the community to report.
So Estelle, that takes us to the reporting structures. Where do people report? You said that there's facilities available 24/7. And we know that abuse usually occurs at home or in the immediate environment, but also not during regular times where people can run out and access some kind of support or immediate attention.
Most people will go to a police station to report that there has been violence in the home, or a rape occurred, or sexual assault. The second highest number of people go to the Department of Health, which is your public hospitals, or to a clinic. But we have a gender-based violence national command center that is available 24/7. You can phone anytime, day or night. You can also speak to somebody about what is happening, the crisis that you are going through, and they are also linked with 10-111. So if you are in a domestic violence situation, they will immediately link you with the closest police station that will send a vehicle to you. If you are in need of medical assistance, an ambulance will be sent to you as well. And that number can be used by anyone, whether you are a service provider and you are not sure which resources you have available in your area. Maybe you are visiting an area that you don't know well, you don't know where the resources are. So that number is 24/7, the Gender-Based Violence Command Center.
Okay, there is a gender-based, and the number, if I recall, is 0800 482 482, and that's a number that is available. It's a toll-free number. It's available 24 hours. And I think something that you've highlighted, Estelle, which is very important for people out there to appreciate, that they don't have to go out and get help, that the help will be brought to them wherever they are, wherever they're in distress, help will come to them. So it's a phone call away, whatever their situation is, that the command center will organize for somebody to come there and to be of immediate assistance. Am I correct?
Can I just correct the number? It's 0800 428 428.
Okay.
You can also send an SMS to star 120 star.
Can you repeat that, please? I think it's important for the viewers.
The telephone number is 0800 428 428. You can also send an SMS to star 120 star 7867 hash. Like you have just mentioned, it's 24/7. You can call at any time. When you send that SMS, then you will be called back.
So I'm going to ask you a question before we take an ad break. So let's look at the hypothetical situation where there's two people living in a household, and the one partner throws, say, the spouse outside, and she's, of course, helpless and has no support. Can she then call this line and get the immediate help that she needs?
Yes, this device can also see where the person is calling from, in which vicinity the person is, and will automatically see what services are available in that specific area. So most definitely, anywhere where the person is, this number can be accessed.
Thank you. And on that note, we'll take a short ad break and continue with 16 days of activism. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Health Matters. Our guests in studio tonight are Estelle Otto, social work policy developer at the Department of Social Development, and Martin Barnard, chairperson of the Child Protection Forum in Gauteng. We have a caller on the line who's been waiting, so we'll take the call. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello?
Hello, good evening.
Yes, please go ahead.
Good evening. I want to know, Dr. Patton know that the Child Protection Forums work on ground level.
Did you get that question?
Yes.
The Child Protection works, the forum, the work on the ground level. You'd like to know more about that, okay? I think that would be for you, Martin.
Yes, thanks, Shaida. Yes, so our child protection committees work on the ground level. We have a chairperson, we have a secretary, we have a person from social development. And what we do, we get the community involved, because we don't know what happens on the ground. The community knows what happens on the ground. So we go to them and we listen to them. They tell us what their needs are. We go back to the department, we tell the department, and then we put programs together and we roll it out there. Anybody is welcome to join the child protection committees. You can just phone the social development number, and then you can just ask them, and then they will give you the right coordinator that you can talk to.
Okay, has that answered your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, have a good evening. Okay, I think we'll continue with the zero tolerance for violence against women and children. Now, my question is, how common is rape? Rape in places like South Africa, we know, had reached epidemic proportions, and I just want to focus on the fact that a lot of research has been done, but we're still finding that the incidence continues to remain high. We're finding that 85 women in 1,000 have been raped at least once as a minor. And the average age for a first rape being 10.8 years. And we find that 10.8% of rapes occurring between the ages of 7 and 12 years, 21.5% occurring between 0 and 7 years. So we're talking of newborn babies and 7 years. And this is not to sensationalize or shock statistics, but just to make you appreciate and understand the extent and the gravity of the situation. We have a caller on the line, so I'm going to allow the caller to present their question. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello.
Hello, ma'am. How are you?
Good, good. Please.
I just want to ask the panel a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Does the panel think that there is enough CPU at the police station? And I just want to know more about the child protection register as well.
Did you get that?
No, I didn't pick it up.
Have you got your TV on? If it is, please switch it off and repeat the question because it's not clear. It's not coming through clearly.
Okay. Okay. Does the panel think that there is enough PU at the police station?
Sorry, does the panel think about what about the police station?
That there is enough child protective units at the police station?
Enough support being provided at the police station?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to respond to that?
Yes, thanks. Yes, there is. What we have at the police station is the people go in and report a rape or an abuse or whatever. The officer at the desk will take your statement and then he will call a FCS officer, that's Family Violent Child Protection and Sexual Offences Unit. He will actually come out and take you to the hospital and get the J88, the medical report, and sit with you through that. And then the social workers come. So there are steps that needs to be taken from that. So yes, it is working, and we have a whole range from Johannesburg to Tembisa to Pretoria, Benoni, Kempton, Katlang, Krugersdorp. So we have all these officials working with us at the SAPS.
But I think if I can just add to that, I think for the viewers out there, please remember you have rights and responsibilities. If you are not receiving appropriate support from an FCS unit officer or from the regular SAPS official, it is your right to escalate it. Always take a reference number and take the name of the investigating officer when you are reporting. There are cases with protocols are not being followed through, and that needs to be escalated and addressed urgently, because there are pockets of excellence and there are some areas where police officers are not doing what is expected of them.
If I could maybe add to that, when you come to an adult victim of violence, it could include rape as well. A similar thing would happen. You would report at the front desk. But now, because it's such a sensitive issue, you do not want to speak at that front desk. So that is why every single police station has a victim-friendly room. It means that you don't have to say, I have been raped, I've been sexually assaulted in that front desk. You can say, I'm here to report this crime, and then you will be taken to a victim-friendly room where you can then give your statement. What we also have at some of the police stations is a volunteer that will then come and do the containment, because you are shocked, you've been through such extreme trauma, that there's somebody that will just be there for you, deal with your emotions, and then if you've got any needs, they will address that. Like Martin has said, the police will then take you to the Thuthuzela Care Centre. This is situated at the government hospitals, and there's some private hospitals also, where you will then get your medical examination. For example, if somebody is in a violent situation and they cannot go back home, then either the police or this volunteer at the police station will then assist you to go to a safe house, or then to be able to go to a shelter for abused women. Even men, you can also report. We do have one shelter for abused men in the province. So services are available, like Martin has said, that you can make use of.
Estelle, perhaps if we can just clarify, what is the Thuthuzela Care Centre? It's a one-stop facility where all service providers are housed under one roof. But I think you've raised something important. You're talking about sexual assault, sexual violation, but about domestic violence. Does the same kind of support, is the same kind of support made available where they can go into a victim-friendly room where they don't have to talk about their personal issues in the presence of all and sundry?
Thuthuzela Care Centre means to comfort someone that has gone through trauma. So there are 7 Thuthuzela Care Centres in the province, and like it is at the emergency services at the hospital. And this is an initiative from the National Prosecuting Authority, because what they have said is that when a case goes to court, it is important to get all the evidence that you can possibly get. So you've got a case manager that represents the NPA under that roof. You have a forensic nurse. You have a doctor. They will call the police to come and take your statement and also your second statement, because sometimes in your first statement you're so shocked and stressed, you forget some of the things. There's also somebody that will do counseling for you. So your whole case is then managed at one point.
Okay, so just the question, the answer to the question, would the victim that comes forward for any kind of support still be provided that respect and dignity of a victim-friendly room where they can be contained?
Yes, it is separate from the emergency ward. So there is a room where they will be totally separate, and you will be having the privacy that you need. Even after the medical examination have been done, there is a shower. So everything is done to protect your dignity, and just to start the healing process at that point where people can care for you and that you can feel that comfort.
And I think, Estelle, just to highlight the fact that this is not only sexual violence, but we're addressing all forms of violence, be it physical abuse, be it emotional abuse, be it verbal abuse. All of that would receive this kind of intervention and support from your Thuthuzela care facility and from your domestic helpline. And on that note, we'll take an ad break and continue with 16 days of zero tolerance against violence. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Health Matters. Our guests in studio are Estelle Otto, Social Work Policy Developer for the Department of Social Development, and Martin Barnard, the Chairperson of the Child Protection Forum, Provincial Chair in Gauteng. And the focus of our discussion has been on the 16 days of activism, which the theme focuses on Count Me in moving South Africa forward towards a non-violent country. So zero tolerance for women and children. And I think we spoke earlier on about statistics and the sensationalization of those statistics, but I think it's important to understand that the recent release of the SAPS figures indicated that just under 800 children were murdered between 2014 and 2015. Under 800 there was an incidence of attempted murder. 12,000 women were victims of physical violence. So these are just some of the figures that indicates the incidence of violence against women and children. Now, Estelle, you spoke about the helpline, and we know that domestic violence is not as frequently reported. It is underreported and under-frequently reported. Perhaps you can explain the cycle of abuse, because often we find that when a woman is desperate, that is when she contacts, as her last resort, she would contact a police officer or seek some kind of immediate intervention.
I think we have myths. We believe that it is poor people that gets abused. It's actually not the case. Abuse can occur in any social economical group. You can be rich, you can be poor, you can be middle class. And it also happens in any culture, in any religion. So this is something that happens in any kind of relationship. So if you look at the cycle of abuse, what happens many times is that there will be an incident of abuse, and afterwards the perpetrator will apologize for what has happened, and the person would feel, the victim would feel, it's not going to happen again, and also that I can change him or he will change. What is very important to know is that abuse is a cycle. So after that violent incident takes place, then there's a calm period again, then things goes better for a while, and then becomes the anxious phase where everybody has to walk on eggshells around this person because he becomes agitated, and you can feel the mood in the room actually changing, which is then followed by a violent incident again. And what research has shown is the longer you stay in an abusive relationship, the more dangerous it gets for you. My advice is to say that even if you are dating, you need to see what is happening in this relationship. What are the warning signs? Is he very jealous? Does he isolate you from family and friends? Does he make all the decisions in the house and whatever you say is not taken into consideration? Because it is not only about you as the mother in the house, it is also about the children that get exposed to the violence in the house. It's not only beatings, it is also verbal abuse, it is also financial abuse. So like you have mentioned, a lot of times when the wife is being abused, there is also children that is abused in the house. It could be sexual, it could be physical. Just the fact that they know mom is not okay, she gets hurt, you know, that can result in children growing up in South Africa in these violent and angry families. And it is taken to the next generation as well.
So you say something very important here. I think you've struck such a sensitive chord about the intergenerational pattern of violence or of abuse, the cycle of violence that is being perpetuated, because there seems to be a trajectory or cause creating pathways where victims go on to become victimizers. And you alluded to the fact that children suffer as a result of the domestic violence where they're witnessing this, and that constitutes abuse, the emotional abuse that is inflicted and the trauma that the child has to live with, because often they do not have anybody processing that information and the secondary victimization that they are subjected to and have to live with. And often we find that those very children go on to become victimizers because it becomes the dynamic of power and control. And because they feel powerless and helpless and out of control, their way or an attempt to the solution of the problem is to take back or mimic what they've observed in their home environment. Even looking at the Stockholm syndrome, where they identify with the aggressor, we see these children role-playing or reenacting the bullying patterns at school, and they are just a microcosm of the macrocosm out there because they are living out what they live by. So I think one needs to appreciate that the cycle of violence needs to be disrupted and broken, and the way people can do it is by standing up and speaking out and breaking the silence. And that is what we say. Don't count the statistics we are counting. We are saying women and children should be counted, not just count, but they should be counted. They matter, and we all need to stand up and speak out. I think you do have a slide on the cycle of violence. Perhaps that could be flighted and you could just discuss that in more detail. You said something about the honeymoon period, because usually when there's a collusion and there's friction, then of course the tempers flaring and tension. But you can speak more to that.
Yeah, so if you look at the tension that is building, this is where there's a breakdown in communication between it can be a mother and a stepfather, and that the victim becomes fearful and she feels she needs to calm down the husband. Where the incident happens, like we said, it can be an emotional abuse, it can be just throwing an object, breaking a cell phone. You know, it doesn't have to be a physical incident. It can be also a threat, you know, that you really feel the person really means business here. And then the reconciliation phase is where the apology happens. And sometimes you will get flowers. Sometimes it will just be the honeymoon phase. Like when you're on honeymoon, everything is going well. There's happiness, there's peace. It's like everything is back
Blissful.
to normal, you know. And then you get the calm phase where in a way it's forgotten. And you know, it is human for us to adapt to situations and to try and make the best of crises in life. Like you have just mentioned, there's no rule book to say this is how things needs to happen in a marriage. And if you grew up being a victim and seeing that women needs to be submissive, you know, then in a way you're not going to speak out when somebody is abusive to you. You're not going to be assertive. And what I want to say to people is that when you are dating already, set the boundaries and set the rules. Do not swear at each other because that is negative on you as a person. Say to the person, in this relationship, we are going to respect each other. We are, as a woman, I'm not even going to slap you through the face because that's what we do as women. We get angry, we'll slap somebody through the face. We will do those kind of things. So there needs to be equality there, that we treat each other with dignity and respect.
Now, you highlighted something very, very important regarding the fact that it occurs across the spectrum. Domestic violence does not, you know, exclude any individual or community. Perhaps, Martin, you can speak to that. Are we finding that certain communities are not coming forward? Are we saying that it's not happening in those communities, or is it because they're not coming forward?
Shaida, yes, you are right there. The communities are not coming forward. It is happening in the communities because we do have a lot of reports on child abuse, child neglect, child exploitation, but the people are not coming forward. So they're hiding behind their doors. And we urge the people to come forward, because if you come forward, we can help and assist you. There are lots of programs, there are lots of services that is available for you to be helped. And especially for our disabled children, you can just imagine if a child's in the wheelchair and he gets slapped around. Why must that child suffer? This is my question to the parents, and they can't answer it. And I keep saying to them, they are selfish. They need to think about it. And then, as my colleague said, Estelle, you need to work through the process as well. So that is happening out there, but they're not reporting and they're not coming forward at all.
Why do you think people are not coming forward? What is it that prevents them from making disclosures or seeking support?
Shaida, with my experience, what I've found out, there's not enough mechanisms to report. Like the SAPS, we will go to the front desk and we'll say the lady's been abused, whatever. The officer at the front desk is not properly trained. He's trained on how to talk to a person, how to take a statement, and what to do. That's why we keep saying that they need to call the FCS unit in, because they are trained in these things to say what, how, who. And this is where the big problem lies. Even with the Metro Police, when they remove our street children, they just throw the children in the vans. And I mean, that's not on. We often got to go out to the children, take the children out of the vehicles, and they move them, and then the child's traumatized, which is not on. So National has made a commitment that the police officers will be trained correctly, and they have started in Mpumalanga, so it is rolling down. It's just going to take a bit of time.
Okay, but you're raising something very pertinent here, where the public need to be aware that they should not just go to a generic police officer in matters such as these, that they need to ask for an FCS officer, Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Offences Unit Officer. And on that note, we'll take an ad break and continue with Health Matters. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Health Matters on Zero Tolerance for Violence Against Women and Children. This is the last segment and we will continue with the discussion. So we ended off with the issue of domestic violence. Now, Estelle, perhaps you can explain the underlying reasons why victims of domestic violence do not actually come forward. What is it that prevents them from making the disclosure or reporting it?
Well, it is a family issue, and lots of times you are dependent on the person that is abusing you. We've had a lot of cases where it has been said that there's even abuse, but the breadwinner, if anything happens, how will this family survive without the breadwinner? And you can also think when there's violence in the home, you feel afraid and you don't know what's going to happen. Where are you going from here? So fear, humiliation. Sometimes also because the abuse is happening in the house, nobody knows about it, and you feel people might not believe you. Because when they look at this husband or this boyfriend, he is a nice guy, he's not abusive, but to you in the house, he is abusive.
Okay, so you've identified fear of reprisal, that they may be subjected to further abuse if they report it, but also the social stigma that is attached to it and the humiliation, the shame, the blaming game that may go on, but also the economic reliance and dependence on their partner. And they feel that by staying on in this relationship, they are protecting their children. What is your response to that? By staying on in a domestic violence relationship where children are subjected to this kind of experience on a daily basis?
As much as a child loves both parents, it is never good for a child to grow up in an abusive relationship. And that is why we have to break the silence, not only for the victim's side, but also for the children who are secondary victims. You know, it's not a good life to grow up in, and sometimes children will resent the mother for staying in that relationship.
So are you saying it could be more harmful than helpful to remain in an abusive relationship?
Yes, especially if the husband is not admitting that he has a problem, and if he does not address the anger that he has inside of him. It's very important to admit a problem, because then you can start looking for help. But like you have said, sometimes the victim blames themselves. Maybe if I didn't do that, or maybe if I change, you know, so we blame ourselves. And children learn that behavior as well. But it's not good to live in an abusive home at all.
So you're saying something very important once again, where children learn that behavior. So the child sees that the mother now is tolerant or continues to live in this abusive relationship. So the child may grow up and seek out a partner that may actually be aggressive, or the child may become aggressive in that relationship to manipulate and control their partner. It's interesting how the dynamics can continue to play itself out later in life, the long-term implications of an abusive relationship and the impact it has on children. Martin, in terms of prevention, we know that there are prevention programs organized by the Department of Social Development, and perhaps you can shed light on what some of the programs speak to.
Yes, sure, Shaida. Well, they got the parenting program where if parents need guidance and assistance on parenting, because there's no book on being a parent. So they will sit you through, they'll counsel you and they'll debrief you. Then they've got for the disability children, because what we found with the disability children is that they're very sexual active at a young age. So we will teach them then their sexual behaviors and how they must behave and what they must do and where they must go for help in that. Then we've got teenage pregnancy, which is a major issue in our schools, where we roll out, we go to the schools, we take the SAPS, Metro Police, Health, Social Development, and we go talk about the pregnancy and how can you avoid not getting pregnant, and if you are, to where to go report it and all of that. And then we have the substance abuse as well, which that's also very big in schools with the alcohol and the drugs in it. So we utilize the SAPS youth desk for that, which they have drama classes where they go out to the schools and they actually talk to the children. And we found the children actually open up and disclose with the information and that. And that's the basic things that we do in the prevention and early intervention stages.
So you've highlighted some of the risk factors, and something that I'm just going to pick up on is the influence of substance abuse, alcohol and drug abuse, that could be a contributing factor in domestic violence as well. And Estelle, we're coming to the end of the program, so maybe you can just pick up on it quickly before we end.
Yes, you will find that gender-based violence happens quite often on Fridays, Saturdays, over the weekend, when alcohol consumption is higher. So most definitely is a contributing factor. But the fact of the matter remains that even if you are intoxicated, you know what is right and you know what is wrong. So any kind of violence is not accepted. You will also find that when people are drinking with friends, there's peer pressure. You know, so people will start saying, you know, there's this person, and, you know, because of peer pressure, also do crime, which is unacceptable. But the bottom line for me is whether you are intoxicated or you are using drugs, that is still no excuse for any crime or any violence.
So we've got the last minute of this program. In maybe 2 seconds, both of you say, what is your final message to the viewers out there?
Thanks, Shaida, for that. My final message to the viewers is please report. You can stay anonymous. You do not have to give your name, but please do report, because we need to know what is happening outside there.
So report child abuse, domestic violence, report any form of abuse to the numbers that were flagged and that is up there on the screen. Estelle, your last parting word?
Yes, I think you've got one life, and that life needs to be happy. That life needs to be a safe life. And as South Africans, we would like to feel free. We would like to be able to walk the streets at night. So we all need to work together, men, women, everybody, to make this beautiful country a safe country for each and every one of us.
Yes, I think I would like to echo that sentiment where we can look at abuse no more, that there's zero tolerance for abuse and violation of women and children. And I just want to flight something. I'm wearing something very special tonight. This is a bracelet of 16 beads, 16 days of activism, and the red bead signifies or symbolizes stop. The orange says caution, and green says go. So stop and think before you act. And this is the kind of message we must say to every person out there who wants to violate or who finds himself in a situation wanting to violate. Stop and think before you act. On that note, I would like to end with a verse. Firstly, to thank the guests. I'm sure you would agree that they were very informative and provided important resources to access support. So we will end with a verse from the Holy Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والأسر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. صدق الله العظيم. Until Health Matters next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.